If you plant a tree, you are reducing carbon by 1 unit. OpenAI, they're hiring software engineers. They're giving like $500,000 salary. Gemini is able to convert your media plan into a DV360 campaign.
Hello everyone, welcome back to this channel. I have a very special guest who has worked on all stages of programmatic. Started as a trader 6 years back, has seen almost all phases from analyst, senior analyst, is working as a group head in one of the top agencies of India, of world right now. So I'll let him introduce himself. Welcome Mehul. How are you?
Hi, Rishul. Yep, not too bad. So quickly to introduce, I think you already, spoke a lot about me, but just to give, my introduction in brief. So I've been part of the media industry for almost 8 years. 2018 is when, I started this journey and I joined Publicis Group, which is right now the biggest, holding agency in the world when it comes to marketing communications. So I joined Publicis back in 2018 as an intern right out of college, and from there, went through training across almost all the domains of search, paid social, SEO, programmatic, everything. And then from there, I decided to make a career in programmatic, even though I did not understand even P or programmatic during my training course. But I was like that, okay, let's take up this challenge to see what it has to offer for me. And yeah, I think since then I've been like working across global markets, not just restricted to India, but even in the likes of US, Europe, Latin America, Asia Pacific, and I've been like working across different client verticals across hospitality, healthcare, e-commerce, retail, and all of that. Initial years was primarily focused on hands-on activation on different DSPs of TV360, the Trade Desk, Amazon DSP. But I think as I gained more experience, I skewed myself, towards the strategy side of the world, where I used to work with our clients' brand managers to be able to curate media strategies. And from a programmatic standpoint, that majorly involved working with different publishers, negotiating deals with them, negotiating CPM prices, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think over the course, given that so much has changed, in the programmatic landscape, it is not just about setting up a campaign, optimizing it and just pulling out the report, but there are, a lot of different levers, right? Which I feel that I've been fortunate to work across, like supply path optimization, uh, carbon emission reading, responsible media and stuff like that. So all in all, it's been like a very interesting journey, right? And I always kind of say to everyone that search and social have got their bits to be doing. It's very important in the real marketing world. What their essence is, but programmatic brings out the very business acumen out of you, right? Because you're not working with just a Google or an Amazon at a time. You're working with multiple companies, vendors, right? If you're into partnerships, you're working with SSP companies like Index Exchange, Magnite, stuff like that. If you're into measurement, right, you work with the likes of Lumen, Playground, XYZ. These are different companies who are into the measurement space as well. So programmatic is very interesting, right? And if you're someone who likes to join the different pieces of a puzzle, right, who likes to engage with different stakeholders, if you like to talk, right, and have conversation with different stakeholders, right, and if you like to do different kinds of work, then I would say programmatic is the space that you can ideally look to build a career in.
You brought out this point of carbon emission reduction in your
Mhm.
conversation. What's that about?
Yeah. So interestingly, the amount of carbon that's actually emitted by a digital marketing campaign, right? Or I should rather say that digital marketing is almost in the top five, industries when it comes to the amount of carbon that is emitted out of it, right? So the highest amount of carbon is emitted by the aviation industry,
Okay.
right? But digital marketing is not very far behind. So I'll give you an example. When you watch an ad on a YouTube or when you watch an ad on a web browser, right? The amount of carbon that actually gets consumed or emitted in terms of that ad loading in the background,
Mm-hmm.
right? That emits a lot of carbon, right? And it's just that anything that you do, online, right? Even if you are surfing through your phone, you're scrolling through Instagram, watching those reels. Behind all of that, those actions, there's a lot of carbon that gets emitted, right? And you can see, check online on different portals that how much carbon is emitted by doing what, right? So one of our global clients, they actually signed. So there's a peace treaty which is called the Paris Agreement, which basically says that by 2050, companies need to be emitting net zero carbon. So Apple, right, is one of the leading companies in terms of doing this, and that's when I think a couple of years back, that's why they have started to build iPhone models just out of old iPhones, right? So
Oh, okay.
reusing or recycling, right, different unused or thrown products because they are working towards the carbon emission reduction goal of theirs. So similarly, for our clients as well, what we did was that we kind of worked across two phases. One was first understanding that how much carbon are we actually emitting. So it's
Okay.
kind of measured in unit grams. So once we were able to understand, then the next plan was to understand that how we can offset the amount of carbon we're emitting. By offset, I basically mean, let's just say if you're running a marketing campaign,
Mhm.
you're emitting 100 grams of carbon from it, right? So what is it that needs to be done to be able to offset or balance out that 100 grams of carbon that you emitted? So there are companies like one of them is like Good Loop. So
Hmm.
Good Loop is basically a company that actually helps you run marketing campaigns, and there are initiatives that can help you offset these carbons. So what they will do is, let's just say you are emitting 100 grams of carbon, right? And let's just say that if you plant a tree, you are reducing carbon by 1 unit, 1 gram, right? So what they will do is, as per their initiative, that if you run a campaign with Good Loop and if you're emitting 100 grams of carbon, they will plant 100 trees, right? So there are, companies like Good Loop. There's another company called Scope 3. I'm not sure if you've heard of the company called AppNexus.
Of course.
Yeah. So the founder of AppNexus called Brian O'Kelly, he later sold that company to Microsoft, and then it got rebranded as Xander. So the same guy has founded a company called Scope 3. I
Okay.
mean, they've been into the business for quite some time. And Scope Three's main, I think, business is that they help companies, understand that how much carbon they are emitting, with whatever marketing campaigns they are running online, be
Hmm.
it programmatic. Majorly, it's programmatic, but I think any DSP, any SSP that you kind of run your campaigns through, you are able to understand that how much carbon you are emitting, and then there are ways for you to be able to offset those carbon units.
Amazing. So App Nexus is a part of this initiative as well?
So AppNexus actually got sold to Microsoft long back. So the guy who founded AppNexus, the guy's name is Brian O'Kelly. He founded this company called Scope 3.
Got it.
Yeah,
Got
he
it.
co-founded it, I think.
That's really interesting. And you working and being a part of it really, I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
However, we'll still be working in programmatic, right? We enjoy our work.
Yeah, I mean, see, you can't see. The thing is that anything that you do online digitally, there's carbon emitted through it, right?
Hmm.
As I
Hmm.
said, even if you charge your phone, right, there's carbon getting emitted through it. Now you can't, survive without charging your phone,
True.
right? But the main ambition of the company should be that how can they really balance off or balance out, the amount of carbon that's been emitted? Because it's true that emission of carbons is not a good thing for the environment, but at the very same time, the companies, do have a responsibility as well to be able to, because they have the means, right? And there are ways to be able to, balance out or offset that carbon that they've been
Hmm.
emitting. So they should be, proactively taking steps in terms of, reducing carbon.
Great, great. That's really some insights I got today. Mehul, starting today, I have heard so many news around this, and so many people are making videos, blogs around this. Is it even feasible, or is it even right to start into programmatic for somebody who is just starting right now? Because many people are saying are like the digital marketing industry in itself is dead for people who are just starting up. We do not need marketers anymore. So, what's your take on that? Because of AI, of course.
Yeah, I think the same narrative has been like that software engineering is, a dead economy now, right? But at the very same time, the likes of Anthropic and, OpenAI, they're hiring software engineers. They're giving like $500,000 salary in Silicon Valley, right? So these are just, rumors and I don't read them more than a rumor, to be very honest. And these are like point of views, right? I mean, tomorrow I can, if I'm at sitting at like a CEO position, tomorrow I can just release a statement saying that AI is great, right? And my stock market goes up, right? But I kind of feel like that the manual human intervention, just as much as needed in software engineering or in any other industry, it's also required in digital marketing, right? Like a very recent example I can take is of like Google released a new feature that Gemini is able to convert your media plan into a TV360 campaign. And it's able to
Okay.
optimize that as well. Now, my question is that how many brands and agencies have adopted, this solution of Google Gemini's? I haven't seen any case study coming out. The reason for that is basically that while AI is great in, saving your time and effort, but at the same time, agencies and advertisers are skeptical of if AI can, end to end, kind of manage your campaigns. There were a lot of, use cases coming out that I connected my Claude with Meta, and it
Yeah.
did this, it did that. A week later, those same people posted on LinkedIn that Meta have suspended their accounts because it's integrated with an artificial intelligence company, right? And there are reasons for that in terms of why Meta did that, because Meta released its own AI, module, I'm forgetting the name, and it didn't want, Cloud to be, integrated with Meta ad account, right? But anyways, there are going to be a lot of restrictions, and I don't see, AI fully taking a media buyer's job in the next 10 to 15 years, right? You still need manual human intervention. You still need, media buyers. You need campaign planners. You need strategists out there, right? Yes, you can use AI, for doing a lot of work that used to take you a lot of time and effort. Right? I'll give you the simple example. So we are into the practice of doing a lot of audience curation, right? In terms of understanding that who our best audience persona is that we can look to chase. Now all of this was being done with a lot of research. You used to go to GWI, used to look at audience size, stuff like that. You used to look at Nielsen reports, and it used to take like days and weeks, right, to get to that perfect audience persona of yours. Now at a blink of an eye, you just give the description to Gemini or a chat GPT, and it will give you the perfect persona, right? And now you can start to build or curate your DV360 audience segments, right, around that persona. So for things like these, definitely AI should be leveraged, and that's what even we do, right? But if you're asking me that, am I confident for an AI LLM to be setting up my campaign, optimizing it, right, and doing it,
Allocating budgets.
yeah, keeping maintaining budgets and keeping everything and giving me like a perfect score, I would be pretty skeptical in saying yes as of now. I can't be reliant on an AI LLM model to be doing it all for me. So my only suggestion to everyone would be that don't think much about if this industry is going to be collapsing and all of that. Even if I'll be very honest, even our CEO Arthur Sardo of Publicis Group, he has endlessly stated it so many times that if the CEO of the biggest holding agency of the world says that AI is not going to disrupt jobs, then I don't really know what exactly else is that people need to be hearing. Even Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, I think a couple of days back, he did post something about that, why there's a need of human intervention to still be there, right? Okay, people are saying that AI is going to kill your job and everything. But now what's exactly happening is that companies are now, so all those companies who fired employees to replace it with AI are now regretting the decision. Why? Because those AI tokens that are getting consumed, that is a lot expensive than a
Than the
human
humans themselves.
salary. Exactly, right? So the tokens are not coming any cheaper. The tokens are only getting expensive and expensive day by day. Companies are realizing that no, I can't be 100% and solely reliant on an AI model to do everything for me. I need human employees to be working for me because A, it's not giving me the kind of output that I want. If I was to compare it with a human being. Second, it's more expensive than having a salaried employee for me. So you have your answer there.
So we still can try our best. And is there any kind of tool or some sort of upgrade that one needs to be ready for while applying for these interviews as a fresher, as a trader, as an analyst? Do our companies asking some sort of, like you already told in your conversation, that you're using some LLMs to curate your audiences? So people who are just starting out, should they also be ready for such things apart from basic certifications like CM, DV360, Trade Desk, and Amazon?
I would say it would be good to have a bit of understanding of how to do research on the likes of Perplexity or ChatGPT,
Okay.
and how you can leverage these AI LLM models for campaign planning. I would say not media buying necessarily.
Okay.
Media buying is still something that you should be focusing more of on your certifications on, because that is where the end-to-end platforms details are kind of listed up. But from a media planning perspective, yeah, you should be able to have some kind of research knowledge of how at least to use these AI models.
So, what about, like, I have seen companies shifting their focus to first party audiences and their own CRM list
Mhm.
rather than using third party data.
Mhm.
What's your take on that? Are we gonna use, as you said, we're gonna use more of AI into this audience integration? But
Mhm.
now companies are saying that because people are getting so privacy safe and they are so much concerned about their privacy, there's UID 2.0 and things are going on in this direction. So would it be reliable to say that we will still be using any AI or anything to use third party data? Would third party data entirely deprecate in coming years or something? Can we see something like that?
I don't know. I don't see that happening really. And it's not that every brand is, having a great tech stack to be able to, run on CRM solutions, right? That's number one. Second, you can't be using first party data across all your campaigns, depending on the funnel, right? If I'm running like an awareness campaign,
Mm-hmm.
there's no point in running a 1 PD. I'm reliant on my, second and third party data only for that. And every brand, run campaigns across all the funnels, right? And again, to build that CRM architecture, to build that first party data architecture,
We
that in
need
itself
to.
is, a heavy lifting, right? And not every single brand, even I would say Fortune 500 brands, if I have to name any, not each and every one of them have like a full end-to-end tech stack solution, right? To be able to be fully reliant on 1 PD. As far as privacy is concerned, see, even if you're going to be using AI, right, even that is not like fully privacy,
Safe.
secure, right? There are going to be loopholes everywhere. You can't really, do much about it. Now, the next format of ads are going to be like AI conversation ads. Like you write something on ChatGPT, and it's going to be, giving you links of brands in the form
It
of an
it
ad.
already does, I guess.
It has already started, right, in the likes of US and other markets. So if I write like I'm having high BP, what medicine should I take? Right? It will give you like hyperlinks of 4 to 5 Amazons,
Oh.
products. Could be a product from Unilever, could be a product from I don't know GSK, and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. So already conversation ads have started on AI, right? Again, for the sake of privacy, no matter how much you try to build that sandbox solution, you're gonna get compromised somewhere or another, right? Loopholes are always gonna stay there. But I still don't think that second party or third party audiences are gonna go anywhere, because at the end of the day, these brands themselves are like the very enablers of third party data, right? They have the audience data and they are the ones who sell it further to other
Hmm.
tech stacks, right? So and I would say all the companies, if I take the example of a Zepto or a Zomato, Zepto in itself sells its data to Trade Desk, right? So that reliance is always going to be there. And if third party data depreciates, then Trade Desk is gone, because Trade Desk doesn't have a data of its own, right? It's not like a Google F18 market audience that Trade Desk can actually curate on its own. Trade Desk is heavily reliant on 3PD, right? So I don't see 3PD depreciating anytime soon, if I'd be very honest.
And what's this Jeff Green scene going on with all the agencies? Jeff Green versus all agencies. In recent days, although he came back and now all agencies are working back on trade desk, they're pushing the same to all the clients. But what was going on with this?
It was mainly to do with free transparency.
Okay.
Um, Agencies, kind of had this narrative that it's pretty difficult to be able to understand that how much penny is actually going into working media, how much penny is going into the pockets of the data suppliers, how much is going into the pockets of the trade desk, right? The transparency was kind of not very. Uh, I would say it wasn't like a black and white kind of a thing, right? But I think a couple of days back, I think I was just reading that now it's all fine. The agencies are, fine to be working with trade desk. But I mean, things like these, kind of happen. Because it's just not the agency flagging this, but it might be that, the brand must have, gone to the agency and must have flagged that I don't, feel very comfortable, working with this particular tech stack solution, right? Because
And not just one agency, almost all the major agencies did
yeah,
that.
so things like these can happen, but I would say the trade desk, kind of handle it pretty well.
Right.
And there's been like a lot of reorg in the leadership of the trade desk recently, right? I mean,
Yes, yes, I saw that.
their CMO has, I think, kind of changed.
Everything has changed apart from the CEO.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's the guy who, Jeff Green is the guy who needs to be running the game. Without him, it's going to be pretty difficult for trade desk to sustain. But yeah, I think now things are back to normal. So I don't see anything, popping up as an issue now on there. At the end of the day, in the DSP, three companies, you have the TV360, you have the traders, you have the Amazon DSP.
Hmm.
So it's pretty, tough to be not able to working with someone like a trade desk is what, I kind of feel like. I
True.
am myself very big fan of, trade desk.
Hmm.
There are, a lot of potentials of it, which I kind of feel like people don't talk about a lot. But there are definitely a lot that you can do with the trade desk as compared to other DSPs.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but you recently launched a trade desk course on Udemy.
Yeah.
So if anybody is interested in learning trade desk, they can visit Mehul's LinkedIn. It's there, and you can search him or trade desk on Udemy. You'll find his course. It's really insightful, a great course to learn from, especially if you're starting up or at intermediate level. Mehul, I want to know that how did you get to a group head level starting from trader in 6 years? And if somebody wants to follow your path, what should they be doing? Or what we are doing wrong?
I think in my case, I would say that I was lucky at at a few instances because I started to work on a global project which we had won, right, and it was like one of the biggest pitch wins of our agency. So I was fortunate enough to be staffed on that project, and I mean that kind of gave me a lot of exposure, right, in front of a lot of different stakeholders, clients, and it gave me a lot of opportunities, right. And very early in my career itself, I was assigned the very task of people management.
Hmm.
So I started off like looking into like a team of five that grew to 10, 15, 20, 25, 40, and so on. Because the project was such huge, it was like a global level client, right? So because the project grew so well, so did the scope of the work, so did the team size, right? So I would say that everything started to fall in piece, at the most optimal time for me. I think apart from that, I always say this to everyone that programmatic is one of those domains where you should not be saying no to any kind of work, right? Was not just responsible for media buying or media planning. Media planning came into my life very later, right? A lot of people straight away are like, I want to get into strategy
Hmm.
first into the media journey. It doesn't work like that. If you don't know the platforms, if you don't know the ins and out of a DSP, how can you get into strategy, right? First 2 years you should be into hands-on experience of how a campaign is set up, how to optimize the campaign, what are the audience segments, what are the bid looking like, what are the PMP deal, what are the PG deal. You should be doing it all, right? Then get into the strategy role. Straight away getting into strategy doesn't work that way. Even if you get into it, you will be lost if a client asks you a question about how does this work on a platform. Now because you haven't worked on the platform ever, you don't know how to set things up. What will you say to the client? You'll be completely blank. So at least the first couple of years you should be spending vividly into setting up campaigns is what I
Okay.
would say,
As a
right?
trader or an analyst,
As a
basically.
trader, as an analyst, yeah, that is exactly what even I did, right? Second thing is that I got very much obsessed with the operations, you know, or side of the business of marketing. So anything that's got to do with like finance, setting up ad accounts, stuff like that. I got very much obsessed with the operation side of the world,
Hmm.
right? Which kind of included that how the fees are calculated, how the ad accounts are set up,
Okay.
how negotiations take place, how the finance side of the world works, how invoices are paid, So, building that, all of that, curiosity, all that, was kind of noticed by my stakeholders, by my seniors. And because I was like one of the very, few people who knew about all this, so I got opportunities into, kind of even helping, my agency partners transitioning accounts. By transitioning, I basically mean that, let's just say if we win, clients media work from another agency, to be able to, bring all that ad accounts, from that agency to our agency,
Hmm.
that in itself is like a very heavy lifting, right?
Hmm.
It takes like 6 months for an agency to just complete the transition, right? But because I was kind of fine, doing all that, and I had like a good knowledge about it as well, so it came out, to be working pretty well for me, because I used to like work across a lot of different global clients,
Hmm.
helping stakeholders and agency partners at our end transitioning those ad accounts, right? So that in itself was like a great joy for me as well. And as I say that, don't say no to any kind of work, because I got so much into operations. I kind of saw an opportunity that beyond media buying and partnerships and all, there's this side of the world as well, right, that I can work on. And it's just that being programmatic, if you do different kinds of work, right, you kind of making yourself like a unicorn, because you know that, okay, how to work with SSP partners, right? Because you know how to transition ad accounts, because you know how to work with a Google, with a trade desk, with an Amazon guy, right?
Hmm.
Because you know how to work with data measurement partners, right? So there are a lot of spaces that you can kind of contribute in, and that is exactly what has worked well for me. That I've kind of exposed myself to different areas of the media landscape, by not just restricting myself to media buying or media strategy.
Hmm. But all this happened when you joined Publicis. Before joining Publicis, when you wanted to join just the programmatic industry itself, what were the resources which helped you gain that basic knowledge to start up?
Nothing really. So I joined Publicis as an intern.
Okay.
We had like a 3 month training period for those 3 months, and we were kind of taught the very basics of ad operations, SEO, search, social, programmatic. And then we were
Everything.
asked that which domain you want to make a career in, and then I chose programmatic.
So it was like a paid digital marketing certification that you did with Publicis. Uh-huh.
We were getting trained, also for it, and then we made a career out of that.
Talking about the payments, what salary expectations can one have starting up till after like 4 to 5 years of experience in India specifically?
Yeah, so I think if you were like a fresher, uh, I kind of see the average is going, to 5.5 lakhs for a fresher,
Okay.
uh, and I don't really, kind of comment much on that how much you will be earning 5 years into this industry, 10 years into this industry, because it all kind of boils down to you as an individual,
Okay.
right? Uh, Unfortunately, there's no average for how much one should be earning like 5 years into this industry. It completely boils down into like what kind of skills you have kind of equip yourself with,
Hmm.
right? And it also kind of varies that if you stay in one company as compared to you switching to another companies, the percentage of hike varies by a lot, right?
So which one is better?
Again, if you see growth, like in my case, the reason why I stayed in my very first company at Publicis for 6.5 years before switching to Ainer, was basically because I was seeing continuous growth, right? Not just in terms of the kind of work I was doing, but even in terms of the financial, you know,
And
uh,
your positions?
position as well. Yeah, so I was getting promoted before the usual timeline, I would say. So let's just say if I was to be, so if someone gets promoted from level one to level two in 2.5 years, that was happening for me in like 1.5 year,
Okay.
right? So if you see that you're getting promoted on time or before time, if you're seeing good high percentages, now what a good high percentage is, that kind of varies for everyone, right? If I would say 50% now, someone would argue with me, no, 70% is much better. That's completely fine. Or someone would be saying that no, 40% is much better than 50%. So again, there's no constant number. That number varies for everyone. That number kind of is very much dependent on everyone's lifestyle, right? That what kind of lifestyle they want to be enjoying, and what percentage that kind of looks like. But if you see, to waking up the very next morning, and opening up your laptop and working, you should be continuing working in that company. If there's any morning that comes up in your life where you feel like that, no, I don't want to be working today, that basically means that it's time for you to, switch. That's how, I would kind of portray it. 6.5 years for me, every single morning I was excited about, working. Uh, there was this one fine morning where I felt like that, okay, maybe a switch is needed. And then I, decided to switch. So if I want to keep it this simple, that's how I would, kind of portray it.
Do you enjoy work a lot?
I enjoy working a lot. Yeah, yeah. Uh, uh, I mean, it's something that just doesn't keep me busy, but I like,
You
value.
genuinely enjoy the like
Yeah,
how the programmatic works and the
yeah,
your work basically.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I've always, kind of welcomed it with open hands, and that's what even I kind of tell to my uh, organizers as well, that be open to, all kinds of work, because you don't know that what might as well, come out as an opportunity, or, in your favor tomorrow. Maybe in an interview, someone asks you of something that you did, a while back.
Mm-hmm.
So you never know.
That is awesome. That is awesome. I think we are hitting our limit. I already asked you for 30 minutes time and I have taken almost 45. I hope you don't mind that.
No, no, no worries.
But I have like 100 more questions to ask you, but I won't take that much time today. Let's wrap up this interview
Yeah,
because I'm also facing some glitches here in which I have to record it again and again. But it was a really insightful and a really great conversation, Mehul. I've learned a lot myself, so I'm quite sure there's a lot of value which our audience is also gonna get from this interview. Uh, Thank you so much for doing it again.
yeah, sure, absolutely. And thank you for having me on this, talk show, Rishul.
I really enjoyed our conversation. Have a great day ahead. Bye bye.
Good. Bye.
So that was our conversation with Mehul Suri. If you want to follow him on LinkedIn, I've added his LinkedIn in description. He has a new course on Trade Desk over Udemy. So you can join that course if you want to learn basics of Trade Desk if you're just starting up in programmatic. Our conversation basically ended abruptly because of some network issues. I apologize for that, but the value that this conversation has is irreplaceable because this is one guy who has worked from a trader level and reached up to a group head level. So you can drive your own motivation from him. And that's all about today. So thank you so much for watching it till the end. More videos coming soon. Have a great day ahead. Bye bye.